This meeting will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Outman.
Here.
Representatives Alexander.
Here.
Cara.
Here.
Bruck.
Present.
Kuntz. Nyer.
Here.
Preston. Bonak.
Here.
Frisbee.
Here.
Wirtz. Here. Herzberg. Hope. Here. Kolazar.
Here.
Andrews. Grant.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Wilson. Mr. Chair, you have 12 members present. You do have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Clerk. Vice Chair Alexander moves to adopt the minutes of the December 16th meeting. There being no objection, the minutes are adopted. All right, I'm going to go testify on a bill. The committee will go at ease.
The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will come back to order. First up, we'll have House Bills 54, 33, 34, and 35. And we'll take testimony from the chair.
All right. Well,
Whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. Before you are a package of bills that updates Michigan fuel tax system to address a reality that already exists, and that is that commercial trucking is beginning to electrify, and our road funding system is not prepared. Now, you may recall Public Act 106 of 2024 or Senate Bill 501 of 2023, Camilleri Bill, that allowed electric semi-trucks to increase their gross vehicle weight by 2,000 pounds to accommodate for heavier electric vehicle batteries. Now, I was not opposed to that legislation, but it did raise concerns at the time that we had not yet established a road funding structure for commercial motor vehicles that use electric fuel. And with interstate trucking and other complexities, this is not as simple as applying an enhanced registration fee like we do for personal electric vehicles. Now, electric semi-truck fleets are not yet mainstream, so that would give us a lot of time to craft this legislation carefully. But the S&P Global reported that U.S. electric and hybrid commercial vehicle market is growing, so Michigan has the opportunity to address this as fleets advance technology and adapt to market shifts. Now, during that time it took to craft this legislation, my office and our policy team studied how other states have approached this issue and worked closely with stakeholders across the industry. That includes coordination with IFTA, the International Fuel Tax Agreement, which is the multi-state framework that states use to fairly allocate fuel taxes for interstate trucking based on the number of miles driven in each jurisdiction. And representatives from IFTA will also be testifying remotely on this bill package. Now, all that work matters because when you look at how our road system operates today, there is a clear gap. Today, diesel trucks pay for our roads every time they fuel up, or in the case of interstate carriers, based on the number of miles driven in Michigan under IFTA reporting. Electric semi-trucks, however, can currently operate without contributing under that same structure. And that creates an obvious fairness issue and also a long-term road funding issue. These bills fix that, and they do it in a careful manner. First, they apply a tax to commercial vehicles that use electric fuel. The tax does not apply to passenger vehicles, in addition to the use tax exemptions for electric fuel used by a commercial motor vehicle. And I plan to introduce a bill to also exempt this fuel from the sales tax as well. Second, the tax is calculated using miles driven on Michigan roads and is directly tied to the existing motor fuel tax rate of 52.6 cents per gallon. So electric trucks pay based on the actual road use, just like diesel trucks already do. Now, we chose a mileage-based approach very intentionally. Among the 4 states, Indiana, Iowa, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania, that currently have IFTA-compliant tax structures for commercial electric trucks, Indiana stood out as having the most workable and transparent system. Other states have attempted to tax electricity directly on a per kilowatt-hour basis, but that approach is complex, difficult to administer, and burdensome for carriers to comply with. Instead, Indiana applies its tax by multiplying their tax rate by the taxable miles driven. This mileage-based calculation simplifies record keeping, makes tax rates more predictable, and directly ties taxation to road usage, reinforcing that it is a privilege to drive on Michigan roads. And I believe that it will ultimately become a model for other states across the nation. Thirdly, this package prevents a patchwork of electric truck taxes while instead using existing Treasury and carrier reporting system, which creates a single statewide predictable framework. Fourth, it applies equally to interstate and intrastate electric freight trucks, ensuring that no one becomes a free rider on Michigan's roads and bridges. Now, if Michigan fails to modernize this system now, we face a future where diesel use continues to decline, electric freight continues to expand, and road funding steadily erodes. None of that is sustainable. These bills ensure that as technology evolves, road funding adapts without shifting the burden onto families, taxpayers, or small businesses. So with that, thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from members? Representative Miller?
Thank you so much. So, can you explain why EV drivers won't be double charged here with registration fees, and how that will be equal if, say, if you were paying your regular registration fees per year and you're paying your taxes? Can you explain how they will not be double charged?
Well, just like traditional diesel trucks right now, they do pay a registration fee. For interstate trucks, it's a flat $2,000 fee, I believe. For trucks that stay within Michigan, interstate trucks, they pay the registration based on gross vehicle weight and some other factors as well. So it's going to be the exact same tax structure as traditional diesel vehicles. They'll pay the registration, but they'll also pay a user fee for the roads, just like traditional trucks do today.
And can you speak for a minute on how this will ensure accuracy and fairness?
Sure. Well, like I said, we're using existing Treasury reporting. So we're literally using the identical system that our diesel trucks use today. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's pretty much identical. It's efficient. It's efficient. It's equal to the equivalent of the miles, or excuse me, to the per gallon that traditional diesel trucks pay. And the more they drive, the more they pay. It's a user fee, so it's just the fairest way to do it, in my opinion.
And the revenue goes to?
The roads.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Outman, for your testimony. Quick question for you on the registration. You said $2,000. Is that for the EV? What's the difference in how much they have to pay per year up front before their user mileage type of concept? What's the difference between the fuel versus the EV vehicles?
Are you talking about like an enhanced registration fee?
Well, so if you have an electric vehicle, not talking about these trucks, your registration
like a personal
renewal-
electric vehicle?
Right,
Yep.
yeah, so that's higher for a car than it is for a gasoline-powered car. What's the disparity between these vehicles and traditional motor carrier vehicles?
I don't think there is one. I don't think they pay that enhanced registration fee for electric semi-trucks. But I can double check that. I haven't got an answer on that. There's so few right now that it really isn't an issue. It's going to become an issue though, and we're just trying to get ahead of it.
So they pay the same amount regardless?
I believe so.
Okay.
And if they do pay an enhanced registration fee, I'd be open to removing that and just making it a straight user fee. Just like traditional diesel trucks are today. Again, interstate diesel trucks pay that flat $2,000 fee when they register with the SOS.
Okay.
Any semi that is just traveling in Michigan is based on vehicle gross weight, other factors. I can't remember what those factors are.
Sure. Thank you.
Representative Bruck?
I believe my question was just answered, so I'll forego it. Thank you.
Representative Wirtz?
Thank you. My question is Representative on HB 5479. That's the one that amends the General Sales Tax Act to exempt electric. So
Yeah.
is that and forgo sales tax of?
Excuse me, that one's not read in yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was speaking on.
You said 5479?
It's on the bill analysis.
Mm. I can still address that question. Just like we eliminated the sales and use tax on fuel purchases, that didn't apply to electricity. It applied to gas, diesel, hydrogen. There might have been another form of energy, but we did not apply that to electricity. So we're doing the exact same thing we did with our road funding plan, if that makes sense to you.
So that'll just be on electric trucks in parity to what we currently have?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The committee will now go at ease.
The House Transportation Infrastructure Committee will come back to order. We do have some cards to read in. We'll start with, wishing to speak on Zoom, supporting the bill, Carmen Martirana and Rick LaRose from IFTA. Gentlemen, are you online?
Yes, I am online. This is Carmen Martirana. I'm with my colleague Rick LaRose. First, thank you, House committee members, for allowing us to testify on behalf of this, behalf of Bill 5433, 3435, and 5479. As you probably know, the International Fuel Tax Association represents all 48 contiguous United States and 10 Canadian provinces in the administration of fuel taxes. The 48 contiguous states were mandated by law back in 1991 to come into compliance with the IFTA agreement or risk not being able to charge fuel taxes on interstate commerce. So we're here to testify in support of this bill simply because I think Michigan is doing the right thing and being proactive. I think as Chair Outman adequately mentioned, the progression of electric commercial vehicles is going to continue, right? Some things happened recently with the EPA rules being removed and California CARB rules, and other states have removed those rules. So the aggressive progression that we had towards commercial vehicles has slowed down, but there's no question it's going to come back. And so being proactive right now just makes sense. Why? Because, as Chair Ottoman said, if you have an electric commercial vehicle transversing through Michigan right now, they are not helping to contribute towards the revenue to maintain the infrastructure, and that's simply not fair. A diesel vehicle will, because they're going to pay the fuel use taxes on the IFTA return. An electric vehicle will not right now. They're not stopping at the pump. They're not contributing in any form to the revenue that you use to support your infrastructure. So Michigan, like every other state that we represent, is looking into how do we resolve this issue. And again, as Chair Ottoman mentioned, there are a couple of states that we're looking at taxing from the supplier level of electricity, but most have found that's pretty complicated. It's not as efficient as taking the route that you're taking now. And the template that you're taking now is from Indiana, and we worked with Indiana to get that legislation through. What it allows you to do, and what the bills before you allow you to do, is to be able to report the operations of an electric commercial vehicle on the IFTA return. That is important because you now will have 57 other jurisdictions incurring the cost of administration collecting on your behalf, just like IFTA does now for diesel vehicles. Without that, you'd have to do it on your own. And so the cost of administration would be huge. We've been around for 4 decades, 40 years, so your carriers are very familiar with filing an IFTA return. The architecture and infrastructure is already there. The IFTA platform is already set up to report a tax per mile for electric vehicles that's included in this bill. So we're already set up for that. The platform is there. The architecture is there. You really have to do very little except maybe address the intrastate vehicles, which I think is addressed in your bill too. Just a couple of things. I know registration fee you were talking about, just so you know, any commercial vehicle is subject to both the International Registration Plan, IRP, that is totally separate. So right now, an electric vehicle is still subject to that. If they travel interstate, they're still going to have to file their IRP return. That is separate from fuel use tax. And that's important because fuel use tax, as you know, goes into a separate account and has to be used for infrastructure. So right now, again, electric vehicles are not contributing towards the infrastructure, yet they're helping damage your roads. And so being proactive now with this kind of bill will resolve that issue. So registration, some people, I just want you to know that we talked to all states, right? All Canadian provinces, and they're all trying to figure out ways to address this issue. Not only that, it is exasperated by the fact that the Federal Highway Trust Fund is about to go bankrupt. They have an extreme deficit. That money is allocated to states, and so it's going to be even worse when more and more electric vehicles start coming on the road for both the federal government and every state. And so addressing it now in this kind of a House bill, I think makes perfect sense. You're being very proactive. Registration fees, an enhanced type of registration fee, meaning is that the answer? We will just charge an additional registration fee for an electric commercial vehicle. That doesn't work because it's not a use tax, right? The whole idea behind fuel taxes is its use. The more you use the roads, the more you should have to contribute towards maintaining that infrastructure. And so an enhanced type registration fee doesn't work. What's in this bill now works the best because it is fair. It's a fair system. The more you use the road, the more you will contribute to the revenue to maintain the roads. Any other system doesn't work. And in fact, if this bill passes, this could be a good platform for the future when Michigan, like every other state, starts to look at the increasing decline in revenue that's coming in from diesel excise tax. How do you solve that issue? How do you sustain that revenue source? You may decide that you want to go to a tax per mile for all fuel types of vehicles. And now you already have that platform in place to do that. Rick, my colleague, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Good afternoon, everyone. I echo all of the comments that Carmen has made. We are in full support of these bills. Chairman Outman is absolutely correct. The time to do this is now. There has been, as we all know, a bit of a pause in the acceleration, if you will, of electric vehicles coming into the market. That is just a pause. It's going to be revisited soon enough. And we applaud Michigan for taking the initiative to be proactive in this. IFTA is a platform, as Carmen mentioned, that's been around for 40 years. It's tried and true. The carrier industry trusts this system, and it does enable a taxing authority like Michigan to have the 57 other members of our association administer, enforce, and collect the taxing your behalf. So the time is right, and we certainly applaud the efforts that the state of Michigan is taking to be visionary in the way they approach an ever-growing problem. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you folks, and I'll turn it back to the chairman or to Carmen.
Well, thank you both for your time. Are they still online? Or did they? I appreciate your willingness to work with us on this legislation and for your willingness to come testify today. Just had a couple of quick questions here, if you're still available. Can you hear me, Rick and Carmen?
Yes, absolutely. We're here to answer any questions you might have.
Just a couple of basic questions on IFTA, just in general. So, you said IFTA's been around for that fuel reciprocity agreement. It's been around for like 4 decades, I think you said.
Yeah, 40 years.
Just touch on
celebrate.
Why was IFTA created in the first place? If you could just touch on that briefly.
Yeah, I will. So the best way to answer that is to think about life before IFTA. So if you were a carrier, if you're a trucking company, and you traveled through 48 states, you had to obtain decals and licenses in every one of those states that you drove through. You had to file a separate fuel use tax return in every one of those states that you drove through. You had to deal with audits for every one of those jurisdictions and different statutes for every one of those jurisdictions. So it was pretty crazy logistically wise. And so they obviously lobbied Congress and lobbied Senate. So in 1991, George Bush signed a law mandating that any one of the 48 contiguous states, if they wanted to continue to be able to charge fuel taxes on interstate commerce, they had to be in compliance with the IFTA agreement. Now, you didn't necessarily have to become a member of IFTA, but you wanted to say what goes into that agreement. And so in order to have a say, you became a member. So by 1996, all 48 contiguous states became a member of IFTA, and then 10 Canadian provinces joined voluntarily. Why? Because they saw the benefits of it. If you pictured it for the state of Michigan in particular, what it was like before, if you had a carrier located in California, you had to collect a return from that carrier in California. You had to travel. If you wanted to audit that carrier, you would have to send auditors to the state of California to audit that. You no longer have to do that. With IFTA, the state of California is collecting on your behalf for any carriers that are based in California. In addition, they are doing audits on Michigan's behalf for any carriers that are based in California. And that is true of all 58 member jurisdictions. So the cost of administration is extremely reduced for a jurisdiction. The benefits are clear for industry. They only have to file one return now with the state of Michigan instead of 58 different returns. On that return, they show the total operations, total miles, total fuel that they purchased in all 58 member jurisdictions, and they net it all out. So it's a very efficient system. That's why we've been around for 40 years. It works really well.
Absolutely, and it just makes sense in terms of a user fee. Say you are a interstate motor carrier and you fill up on the state land in Indiana, but you drive primarily on the Michigan roads. We want to be recouped for that travel, and so it just makes sense. It seems like a much better system than how it was previously, and I agree. Motor carriers seem to like it. So again, I really appreciate you guys being here. Members, do we have any other questions for IFTA while we're here? No? Seeing none, Rick, Carmen, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime. Appreciate it.
We're going to move on now to some more testimony here. We have wishing to speak neutral on the bill. We have Chase and Justin. Clean Fuels, Michigan, the MEBC. You guys come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Justin Carpenter, and I'm the Director of Policy at the Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council. For those that don't know us, we're a trade organization of roughly 160 advanced energy and mobility companies. Joined here today by my colleague Chase Atanasio of Clean Fuels Michigan. While our organizations are broadly neutral on this set of bills, we wanted to express our support for broad taxation parity between electric and internal combustion vehicles. This has been a nationwide challenge to adapt our transportation tax structures to electrification. And as industry voices, we wanted to express our mutual interest in ensuring that Michigan meets that challenge in a fair and balanced manner for drivers and vehicles of every class and fuel type. The approach of this bill package in matching the tax treatment of electric motor carriers to that of their diesel counterparts is a sensible and fair approach. We hope a similar approach will be taken as broader discussions around electric vehicles and taxation continues. And then really quickly, Rep. Wertz's question, while you were up, Chairman, so I believe that you're correct. There's not like a additional registration fee for electric motor carriers of that class. And I would say I will, kind of outside the purview of these bills, but Rep. Wertz, if you're interested, there's probably some discussion to be had around the fact that like a consumer level EV driver does pay sales tax on their fuel in addition to the rest of the taxes they pay. But I know it's not exactly germane, so I'll turn it over to Chase.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak on these bills. Like Justin mentioned, my name is Chase Atanasio. I'm Policy Manager with Clean Fuels Michigan. Like EIBC, we're a trade association that represents businesses working to advance and deploy the clean fuels sector in the state. We're seeing growing interest in commercial electric vehicles, like you've heard, across freight, logistic, transit, and municipal fleets. This is being driven by the benefits that electric vehicles provide to businesses, including lower operating costs lower refueling prices, more efficient operations, and significant air quality improvements where these vehicles are operating. For many fleets, EVs aren't a future concept. We're seeing school buses and delivery vehicles transitioning at scale across the state, and heavy-duty electric trucks like the ones that these bills apply to, like semis and refuse trucks, are being piloted around the state. As written, these bills are focused only on Class 6 through 8 weight categories of electric trucks, representing an important but still emerging segment of electric vehicles in the fleet market. Like Representative Outman mentioned, these are not mainstream vehicles, but we're seeing early adoption through pilot projects across the state. We believe that Michigan has a real opportunity to ensure that any new tax frameworks don't unintentionally slow investment, deployments, or innovation in this emerging sector. We do appreciate that this approach that these bills takes reflects the modern realities of the modern vehicle landscape in Michigan. As we're seeing vehicles move away from gasoline and diesel, it's reasonable to explore alternative taxes that ensure all vehicles are contributing fairly to Michigan's transportation system. We believe this framework builds on concepts and reporting processes that fleet operators already understand, as we heard in the previous testimony, and it provides a thoughtful starting point for discussions about how Michigan should fund its roads into the future. So we look forward to working with Chair Outman and the members of this committee to make sure that we're achieving tax parity on all vehicle technologies in the state. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Justin. Chase. Members, we have time for a couple of quick questions. Do we have any? No? You guys did such a good job, I don't see any. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. A couple more cards to read in. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bills. Ed Rivet, Michigan Conservative Energy Forum. Not wishing to speak, opposing the bills. Paul Corbett, Mish Auto. Is that all of them? Correct. Next up today, we're going to begin a series of hearings on a package of bills regarding drone infrastructure. First up out of the package will be House Bill 5319 and through 5324. Rep. Bruck, head on down whenever you're ready, sir. Looks like you have some visuals and some other stuff for the committee as well. I got the all-star team.
Yes, it is. So give me just a moment to, I think I'll be good with
Take your
this
time.
for now. So I have a presentation to do. Before I begin, I do have to give a lot of kudos to all the fellow sponsors. This is a very large package, so I do appreciate you, Mr. Chair, for taking this up. It is a package of 15 bills. We did add an additional bill, and possibly there may be one more added. And I want to remind you and the entire group here today on the committee that this is a first step in where we want to go in the future for drone mobility and drone mitigation. And all the packages tend to surround around three major areas. That's critical infrastructure, public safety, and then drone management and mobility. And so everything that we'll have in this package deals with one of those three, I'll say, tripod of where we want to be. Not where we are now, but where we want to be. So behind us is our logo, the Shield Michigan. Securing homeland and infrastructure with emerging laws for drones. So this has been well over a year worth of process, hours and hours with stakeholders and others coming up with practical laws that we can implement that make our state safer. I do chair the Homeland Security and Foreign Influence Committee, and we have vetted many of these things through, and this is kind of a product of that and a drone symposium, which we are having another one February 26th of this year with stakeholders and others. My name is William Bruck. I represent the 30th District. So I'm going to show like First is establishing why. Why now? Why do we need to do anything? So this is a pretty famous, infamous video from last year. I'm just going to play a portion of it, not the entire thing. So hopefully I can do this without IT folks. Ooh. I may need IT folks, but we'll see. What this is Operation Spiderweb. I'm not going to play a lot, but last year Ukraine did a surprise attack on Russia. 40 plus strategic bombers, surveillance craft, fighters. You can see the devastation that drones that were pre-planned, placed, and not, they're autonomous once they're done. You'll notice the tires. So the tires are actually Russia's mitigation measures to recognize drones. Obviously it didn't. Play this entire video. A lot of tires. Keep their airplanes safe.
Felt like I was at a nightclub there. Gee.
Yeah, it is a Ukrainian video, so I think they like that techno music. But Operation Spiderweb was 1 June 2025. And what we've seen was over 100 drones that were pre-placed, as you can see on the left of the screen, is how they did it. They pre-manufactured housing units, had them shipped into Russia with the drones already in, and the middle picture there is the top. It was a slide, and when they were ready to go, it took over a year of planning to do. When they were ready to go, they popped the lids, the drones went to where they were, and then AI took over and intercepted with the airplanes. It was very ingenious. What it destroyed was 40 plus strategic bombers and fighters and surveillance craft. Only, in American dollars, only $7 billion worth of airplanes, but these strategic bombers were a third of their strategic fleet. They're nuclear bombers and are irreplaceable. If they had $7 billion today, they could not replace those planes. So what they did was completely destroy a third of their strategic bomber fleet in a matter of minutes, I may add, with not one life lost. Secondly, why? So we'll play a short clip
Soon,
here.
millions of us will pay more for health care, and we'll see a hike in electricity
We're all
bills.
paying more for
All
healthcare.
because Congressman Tom Barrett voted to
Okay.
cut clean energy and Medicaid, just to give rich
Sorry,
people
Tom.
another tax cut. He sold us out. Now we'll pay more every month.
Actors use them to attack our
right, move along,
security.
Chief.
That is the message from a former military man turned lawmaker who spoke with our 6 News Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic about his 14-page bill to slap state regulations on drone usage.
I don't think the congressman is going to
One of
appreciate that hit
Representative
piece.
William Bruck's worst nightmares is that somebody with bad intentions will fly an illegal drone over the big house in Ann Arbor. And even worse, he believes, it's only a matter
The message from a former military man turned lawmaker who spoke with our 6 News Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic about his 14-page bill to slap state regulations on drone usage.
More than 14
One of
pages.
Representative William Bruck's worst nightmares is that somebody with bad intentions will fly an illegal drone over the big house in Ann Arbor. And even worse, he believes, it's only a matter of time before there's a repeat of 9/11. He calls it 9/12, somewhere in our country, which is why the representative is working hard to pass a 14-bill package to impose a drone registry and other safeguards to address this question.
So you're predicting the wild, wild west if we don't regulate?
Well, it is the wild, wild west right now in the U.S. We have drones flying over prisons, over our power plants, over critical infrastructure, over airports. They're interacting where they shouldn't be each and every day here in Michigan.
Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard wants the committee to pass legislation that would give law enforcement the right to stop nefarious drones from harming the public.
Even if there was a nefarious drone flying, let's say the Woodward Dream Cruise, and they knew it was a bad drone, they knew it was nefarious, they knew it was weaponized, there's nothing legally that Sheriff Bouchard or anyone else can do to counteract that.
Out of the sky.
No, they can't.
The package of bills is also designed to preserve the right to use drones by law-abiding citizens, such as farmers, real.
I'll I'll stop it there and belabor. So you're going to hear me a lot right now. So I'm going to minimize this and probably lose my, nope, there it is. So I'm not worried about 9/11 anymore. That was 25 plus years ago. What I am worried about is 9/12. And so this bill package is designed. And in that interview with Tim Skubic, he asked the question, Wild Wild West. We are in the Wild Wild West, and I just have a short list here. If it's exhausted, it would take hours to go through. But we've seen in recent history the Palisades UAS manned collision and the firefight out in California, where it thankfully did not cause that plane to go down, but very, very much could have and would have. In Butler, PA, when we see in the VIP, then candidate President Trump, the person scouted that location with a drone prior to his shooting of the president and others. Prison facilities each and every day around the country. And during a 6-month period in 2024, over 60,000 drone incursions at the southern border. We see fiber-controlled attack zones and front-person vehicles that are controlled. We see the proliferation in cartels using them. We've seen the TACOM attack just recently where the individual used drones and was planning on using drones for the attack before he was caught. Airports, here at Metro and various airports, when I've talked to personnel about drone incursions, it is a common thing. Critical infrastructure, flying over power plants here in Michigan, each and every day, nuclear power plants and others, chemical plants. Yes, and some of these things are FAA prohibited. However, it happens each and every day. Open air stadiums, these are, I would say, one of my biggest fears. We have Comerica Park, MSU Stadium, and the Big House. We've seen at Comerica, I believe it was Comerica Park, where Green Day and also Lumineers concerts were canceled because of drones that they didn't know if they were bad or not, and that it caused chaos. We see that each and every day here in Michigan. This is compliments of Airspace Link. These two photos here show a very, very small portion of southeast Detroit and the drones that are flying. Now, obviously, most of these drones are legal. Most of these drones, a lot of these drones are commercial, but we also see it has the flight path lines, and we see on the south end, that is actually Canada, and on the north is Detroit, and we see multiple lines passing through. We'll also note that this is a very short window. This is only a day or two in each slide. This is another slide that shows all the drones interacting right on the border. And I can't say whether they're nefarious or not, but we do know that over 60,000, in a 1 6-month period in 2024 was across the southern border. So securing the homeland and infrastructure with emerging laws for drones. The case, I don't think I have to make it and belabor it, but we are very vulnerable to nefarious drones here in the country. We see it around the world. We see in other countries, even in our own hemisphere, in Mexico and South America, where cartels have their own drone cells, and they fight each other and fight police and federal agents, killing with weaponized drones. We see all around the world this happening, and we'd be naive to think that this will not happen here in our country, and especially in our state with the infrastructure we have. So they're emerging technology, a lot of valuable things that drones bring. Amazon is delivering packages currently. Around the country, they have cells that they're doing deliveries with drones. The police are using them. They're a force enabler, enhancer each and every day. They're being used to find elderly adults that are lost and bad guys with thermal imaging. They're able to find folks and little kids in cornfields that would take hundreds of people to find. They're very, very good, but also they pose a serious risk to both privacy and security in our state. This comprehensive package of legislation, although is not perfect, I'll be the first to admit we have went through bazillions, if that's a word, of changes, but this is just the first step. And we have worked with stakeholders extensively. We have not been able to please every single stakeholder in this case, but the key here is Homeland Security. The key is protecting our state. How do we protect our state? from unauthorized surveillance, reckless, and/or malicious drones. This shield plan, and I'll just give a quick overview and then we'll go to the actual testimony on the bills today. Because it's so extensive, I wanted to get an overview, Chair, on the entire thing. So House Bills 53, 19, and 20, myself and Representative Liberati, establishes restrictions prohibiting drones from flying near and over critical infrastructure around the state and then imposes those penalties for that. It reduces the risk of surveillance, smuggling, and attacks. House Bills 53, 21, and 22 is Representative Meerman. He is here today as well. This has to do with the infrastructure sites and key facilities, implementing geofencing or similar technologies around critical infrastructure, giving them the ability to install that, and also authorizing MDOT as the keeper of those restricted spaces as well. House Bill 5323 allows critical infrastructure owners to install that detection and geofencing and/or similar technologies. This is Representative Mike Harris, and also allows the mitigation of those drones in said facilities. House Bill 5324, which is Representative Steckloff, who is not here today, requires a posting of no drone zones, following certain guidelines, and MDOT be the facilitator of that. It clearly marks those restricted areas. House Bill 5325, and you'll see that some of these have substitutes that are either currently in hand or coming. Grants the authority of law enforcement and security personnel at critical infrastructure to disable said drones, and that's Representative Carter. House Bill 5326 authorizes local law enforcement agencies to disable or take down drones that pose a public safety health, and also gives them the tools to respond quickly to potential dangers. That's Representative Begall. House Bill 5327 prohibits drone operators from trespassing over private property without consent, reinforcing private property protections, and prohibits them from invading the privacy and/or harassing said residents. It does not disallow the flyover. It disallows that portion of interfering with the residents on private property. House Bill 5328 prohibits state and local entities from purchasing and using drones manufactured by companies of concern as defined by some federal standards that are in the legislation. This is a bill that I've sponsored. Also has a 2 and a 5 year implementation window, which we'll discuss when we discuss this bill. House Bill 5329 prohibits public entities, colleges, universities from purchasing with tax dollars the said same types of drones from those companies of concern. That is Representative Shriver. House Bill 5330, which also has a substitute, allowing public safety agencies to use drones that might otherwise be restricted. This is part of one of the other bills allowing that 2 and 5 year window. It allows them to use what would have been prohibited drones from the federal level, from those federal lists we're using, allows them to utilize them in public safety, because we did not want to do what Florida did. They did a rip and replace, and that caused a disaster really for public safety servants, because they took away what they're using and they did not have replacements. That was the last thing we wanted to do, was hurt our public safety officers and agencies, and so we instituted a 2 5-year window, and the software overlay is a way to ensure the safety of that data. This is Representative Robinson. House Bill 5331 aligns with the standards of federal guidelines. This is Representative Conlin. It's another one regarding with the purchasing of the drones with local governments. 5332, that's Representative Martis. That establishes a drone registry with the Michigan Department of Transportation, and they would be the keeper of that registry. This doesn't just double the work that the feds do as far as drone registry, but allows a quicker access to that said registry for local agencies and others to get the information that they need on particular drones that would either be trespassing. Sometimes it takes a very long time when the request is made. So just to give you a little background on this is every drone, commercially operated drone, has a license plate, and it's registered with the FAA, the federal government, and sometimes it takes a very long time to find the actual owner operator of that. This is to ease and give a safer reaction time for our public agencies. House Bill 5465 updates our key facility list. Key thing in there is adding data centers and battery storage facilities and adjusting our railroad definition of key facility. And that is a bill that I am sponsoring. So that was the overall on the SHIELD package. It's a lot, which is why I really appreciate Chair Outman that you have given us the opportunity over 3 hearings to do this entire package, because as you see, it would probably take us 5 hours if we just did the entire package in one setting. So first to present will be myself and Representative Liberati, and we'll be talking about House Bills 5319 and 5320. 5319 is really a crux in this entire package. It's making critical infrastructure no drone zones, and it gives the protections that not only we need, but also critical infrastructure owners are asking for. There's not a power company or chemical plant or refinery in our state currently that has any protection. If there's a malicious drone that flies over Fermi 2 down in Monroe County, there is nothing that keeps a malicious drone from flying over Fermi. I'm not trying to, do scare tactics. I'm just stating the facts. There is no protections for malicious drones in our state. Now, there are some places, like the Big House, that installed recently radar drone detection systems. They can see drones. They can't protect from drones. And that's a big issue that each one of us should be worried about, because one day when there is, and I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when, in the U.S. something occurs with malicious drones. And we see it around the world, and I can't reiterate that enough. It is going to happen in the U.S. What are we going to say we did about it? And again, I will say this package is not perfect. There's much more to do, but we must do something. And so Bill 5319 makes critical infrastructure and the key facilities list as in the current legislation and in Michigan, no drone zones. It does create a violations. It creates the legal violations for those that are just inadvertently flying in those no drone zones. But it also has a malicious intent legislation punishment as well. No drone zones will be, it will be our correctional facilities, will be large outdoor arenas or indoor arenas. State-owned property, critical infrastructure, as listed in the key facilities list, power plants and facilities, railroads, and many other public entities. It does list unmanned vehicles as both being in the air and in the water as well. We want to protect it and make this something that also protects our ports and our harbors here in Michigan. So we also added waterborne drones as well. Representative Tullio?
I didn't know if you were going to come up rare or not. What my bill does, thank you, Chair, House Bill 5320, it just updates the criminal procedure sentencing guidelines that are already in place to include penalties for flying over or trespassing on these key facilities and critical infrastructure with the drone.
And to add to both his and I, you know, there is a different penalty for malicious intent versus non-malicious intent. And there is a 90-day effective date for this particular legislation. Next up will be Representative Mike Harris.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for allowing me to speak on House Bill 5323, which is a key component in Michigan's broader drone and aerospace safety package, also known as SHIELD. I want to give a shout out to Rep. Bruck. He's invested a lot of time, as you've heard from very intensive testimony. This bill adds a section to the Management and Budget Act and authorizes DTMB to install devices that detect unmanned aircraft and also technology that prevents unauthorized unmanned aircraft from flying over state-owned buildings and critical infrastructure. I think we've seen some examples of the importance of that. It also allows coordination with MDOT, so appropriate facilities can be included in the geofencing database, and it expressly is limited to areas that are not preempted by federal law. In short, this bill respects the FAA's authority while ensuring that Michigan is not standing still in the face of evolving threats. You know, before serving here, and I'm sure many people on the committee are already aware, I spent a career in law enforcement. I also worked as a private investigator. And we focus on special investigations, dealing with fraud, organized schemes, and people who look for gaps in systems to exploit for profit or harm. And one thing that experience teaches you very quickly is that there's always good actors, and there are always people looking for a tool to do bad things better. Drones are no different. I've seen how quickly technology that starts as a convenience becomes a tool for surveillance, intimidation, contraband delivery, or worse. Criminals and organized actors adapt faster than policy does, and I think we've all seen that here. And that's the reality on the ground. Around the world, as we've seen videos of, drones are not just hobby devices or camera platforms anymore. And I'm a hobbyist. I'm a drone hobbyist. They are being used in real-world conflicts and attacks, including against military forces and critical assets, some of our own. Small, inexpensive unmanned aircraft are being modified to conduct surveillance, deliver contraband or explosives, disrupt infrastructure, and harass targets. Our own troops have faced drone threats overseas, and that technology does not stay overseas. It spreads, it becomes cheaper, and it becomes much easier to use. As Rep. Bruck pointed out, we'd be naive to assume that state facilities or public infrastructure are immune simply because we hope they are. State-owned buildings and infrastructure are not just office space. They can include transportation assets, government operations centers, and facilities that are tied directly to public safety and continuity of government. You know, back during Governor Snyder's term, we had an intelligence briefing, and he happened to be there, and we had a demonstration of a drone flying over an autonomous vehicle and was able to connect with that vehicle and actually take control of it. That's a scary thing. And many of our auto manufacturers spend millions on trying to make sure those vulnerabilities are protected. But the reality is drones can be used for things like that. They can be used to access Wi-Fi hotspots in our water treatment facilities. They can be used to carry all sorts of horrible things that could affect some of these critical infrastructure pieces we're talking about. This is a real threat. This is not something that we've just seen in a movie. This is something going on today. So detection and geofencing are very preventable tools, the same way that we look at alarms and camera use. We don't wait for a break-in to decide whether a building should have locks, and aerospace now has to be part of that same mindset. So with that, I respectfully ask the committee to help support this package. Thank you.
Representative Meerman, did you have anything to add on your bill?
I believe we're going to take a pause at this point for questions before we do Meerman, or would you like to do Representative Meerman's?
We can take a pause here. Just say from my perspective, I really appreciate what you guys are trying to do here. I think it's important to protect these key infrastructure facilities and also have those enhanced penalties as a deterrent. I like that you're giving law enforcement the ability to address this issue. So I like a lot of what I'm hearing, and I appreciate you guys' willingness to work on this issue. We do have some questions from members. We'll start with Representative Miller.
First of all, thank you so much for the work that you've done on this package. I watched you carry in that stack. It was this high and spread across, and I know how hard you've worked. I remember being in Miami several years ago, getting to the hotel room after a long flight, opening the curtains to see our lovely view, and what was staring at me? A drone. And it followed us all week. It creeped me out. And they're like, sorry, nothing we can do. So I get it. I also know that you have hobbyists, moms, dads, kids who get the drone, go out to the park, and then all of a sudden they're near the airport in a no-fly zone. So I want to make sure that there's a warning first option for first-time, non-malicious hobbyists, because I think that's important to address. You know, for the simple fact that the lack of protections for people who accidentally fly in an area and then they're hit with a fine just for being at the wrong place with no malicious intent, and that needs to be addressed. Also, 5321 requires drone operators to download an app on their smart device that would be used, and I feel that could be an invasion of privacy. And how they get these tickets or violations, would that be through an app that they have to download? But thank you again for your work, and I'm just trying to be helpful here. And one more thing, if I might add, what safeguards are in place for geofencing? If you could just go into a little detail on that.
Thank you again. With the app, so when you fly a drone, you're generally using either an app or a device of some sort to fly it. Currently or before, so there was a lot of geofence. DJI had geofencing in all of their drones up until last year, and they did an update that updated the firmware on every single drone worldwide and removed the geofencing. So with that geofencing the way it was prior, if you're flying a drone over an area that was prohibited or FAA had determined, you know, there's FAA guidelines too in here, you would get a warning on your device that you had to either click through or just some sort of pop-up warning that would say that you were entering or nearing restricted area around an airport, let's say. That would pop up so you would know. So this data, this app that we are putting in the legislation for users would give them that warning. So we want to preempt, you know, people flying past a sign. Obviously, the drone's not going to see the sign that's posted around the power plant. However, that's there for physical sight, but there'll be on the app or the geofencing, and geofencing technically would not work right now, but there's other emerging technologies that could keep, you know, a drone from flying through. And as I said, there's a whole lot of different, there's direct first-person drones that you are flying directly. There's AI-enhanced drones that fly essentially on their own. There's fiber optic cable. That's what they're using in Ukraine right now, is 12-mile-long fiber cords. And they can fly controlled, and there's no way that they can counter that with, you know, certain technologies, other technologies they can, but they can't stop that transaction of information between the controller and the drone when there's that fiber optic. There's other ways to take it down, which we won't discuss, but the apps and those requirements with them, with the MDOT and such, is to ensure that just general users are aware of the prohibitions of, you know, where they shouldn't fly.
Just as long as if they do get a citation for a misdemeanor, they're not tagged with malicious intent?
Yes, yeah, there's, in my bill in the H1, and I'll speak to the substitute does include, I apologize here. It does include up to, you know, for persons that violate non-maliciously, essentially. That was added in subpoint 5. It doesn't mean that person's going to get a fine. Just like right now, if they violate FAA guidelines and fly over a stadium or around the airport, they're not necessarily getting a fine. Every single person that flies and violates FAA guidelines there. So I
And
think
the
that would be
state
up to the
would
prosecutors.
develop the application, the app?
Say again?
The state would develop the app?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, or use a current app. I mean, this is an emerging technology around
Right.
our nation. There's all kinds of states doing similar things that we are doing. We, as a state, are taking the lead with this package overall. It's
And
very
I applaud you for that.
comprehensive.
Thank you.
So-
I'm just concerned about privacy as well. But thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I know how hard you've worked on this, and it's so needed. It's rapidly expanding very quickly.
Yes, ma'am. Did I answer all your questions?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Rep. Miller.
We'll go now to Representative Frisbee.
Thank you, Chair. Just one comment, concern of how did we select MDOT as the overseer of this? I understand that they have many pieces that will be monitored, but we're creating a layer in response that I think we want to avoid. So while MDOT can play a role in it, I think the Guard and MSP are already co-joined in some respects here in Michigan in providing some of these levels of monitoring. I think they may have the infrastructure better available to implement quicker. So I would encourage you to make that vague of the best implementation used to get it up quickly and safely that eliminates time and layers in response, because MDOT's not going to respond to this. It's going to be the Michigan State Police, local police, county sheriffs that respond, and potentially even the military. So I would encourage you to think about that and allow administration the best opportunity of implementation versus a designed implementation. That's my only comment.
Okay, I can comment a little bit on that. You know, MDOT Aeronautics Division currently already has the certifications and such go through them. They do have registry of commercial drone operators. They already have a catalyst for building for future mobility. And we also wanted in this whole package is who do we at the state level assign a responsibility for the future mobility. We're not just looking at, you know, prohibitions of you can't fly over this or that, but also who is going to be the controlling or responsible mechanism to make sure Amazon packages are arriving and where they can fly and where they can't fly and how they should deliver or hospitals delivering blood, et cetera. Like the future mobility is where we're looking with MDOT Aeronautics. Obviously, there's a shortfall on their staffing and there's going to be some budgetary requests and such, but we look at MSP or the National Guard as, yes, there'll be some of the responding factors, but as far as keeping that information, having a central dispatcher of that information.
But again, I just want to look at the time frame, and Rep. Harris will understand this because we both worked in that realm of first responder. You don't want to build layers. You want to eliminate layers. It doesn't mean that MDOT doesn't, I don't think MDOT wouldn't play a major role in this, but embed them together and then make the focus on the response to a threat the first thing instead of the second thing. That's just from a first responder perspective of put it in the hands of the folks that can mitigate the problem right away or potentially and are going to be the ones that respond. So just some thoughts and give some flexibility to that versus.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Representative Frisbee, and I think they will, putting a single layer, you know, looking for a statewide agency that can kind of encompass both MSP and the National Guard and even your safety personnel at critical infrastructure who's private security. You know, they're not necessarily, MDOT is not going to be determining if there's a response needed. They're just the holder of the information and updating the list and updating the restricted areas and such.
My point, though, is MSP already has some of this much of this infrastructure in
Do
place.
have some, yes.
So it might be better. Just thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and we're kind of getting short on time. I know we have a lot of stakeholders that want to testify, so if we could keep our questions somewhat succinct, we'll go now to Representative Grant.
Thank you. several of my questions have already been answered. Thank you for your work on this package. My question is, because I do have drones as a hobby. Well, I had hobbies before this job. I haven't taken it out in a while. But I am familiar with those alerts that will come on the DJI system. I actually didn't know they had taken that away because it's been so long since I've gone out. But my question is, when we talk about geofencing, will this only pertain to geofencing around those no drone zones? And when you designate what a no drone zone is, do you see this as something that could evolve to people also having temporary no drone zones? So like for certain large events or for certain, government needs. I'm just wondering how deep the legislation gets into that. Does it allow for it? And in that case, how would you notify someone if one day this field is, I can take my drone out, but for this certain event or thing, it may not be allowed?
Yeah, we had looked at special events. Some of that is delving into Representative Meerman's bills regarding the actual geofencing or similar technologies. So I'll kind of wait to answer that until he presents, and then if there's still that question, I'll take it.
On that note, Representative, let's go to Rep. Meerman's bill and testimony, and then we can see if there's some time for some follow-up questions.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Chair. I'll just be really brief. Two bills that I'm sponsoring just have to do with the Geofencing Act, and we're working to just give a penalty to those that go within those different areas, and then we're asking MDOT to be the holder of those of that information and where these databases are. So I can leave it that brief, and we can keep questioning.
Excellent. Thank you, Representative. Rep. Bruck, do you want to touch on Rep. Sekuloff's bill real quickly?
Representative Sekuloff's bill essentially just talks about the no drone zone signage. And FAA has some regulations around the signage already, and it's just implementing that signage at the state level and allowing the Department of Transportation to require those signs at the key facilities.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. We have plenty of cards to read in and some stakeholders that want to testify, so we'll move on to that. Again, thank you. We'll start with...
Thank you very much, Chair.
Yeah, you betcha, Chief. We'll start with wishing to speak, supporting House Bill 5324, supporting with amendments House Bill 5319, 5320, House Bill 5323, and then opposed to House Bill 5321 and 22. We have Matt Rybar, the president of the Michigan Drone Association. Matt, do you want to make your way up to the table? And please begin whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, and thank you, Rep. Bruck, for all the work on this package. It's very evident that we need to be continuing to find legislation, common sense legislation that can help protect our state as well as enable some of the industry that wants to develop drone technology here in Michigan and across the country. My name is Matt Rybar with the Michigan Drone Association. We founded in 2022 as the Michigan Public Safety Drone Association. My background is in law enforcement and over 10 years in this industry as well. And over the last 8 to 10 months, we have additionally expanded our capabilities to support other aspects of the drone industry. A lot of this was generated during the last legislative cycle, where we realized there are a lot of stakeholders here in Michigan that want to be a part of the drone industry in every aspect. We have law enforcement that utilizes drones on a daily basis. We have agriculture, defense, the energy sector, service providers. The use of drones continue to grow across our state, and our association has begun to represent different aspects of the industry and their interests. Currently, we have over 800 members, 800 individual members, 140 different organizations, a heavy emphasis on public safety still, because that's where our roots are at, but we look to continue to expand and represent different aspects of the industry. One of the big overarching comments I'd like to make is that technology continues to evolve, but our policy has to be available to morph with some of the technology as it evolves over time. Some of our comments today are really directed at exactly that. How do we morph the legislation so that we can support the concepts? However, some of the technology limitations, we are putting ourselves in a bit of a corner at times in some of the current legislation. So I'm going to step through very quickly just each of the bills and let you know where the association stands today and what we've worked with Rep. Bruck's office and the bill sponsors on some amendments. We know a lot of those amendments are in the works right now, so I'm going to talk through what our amendment suggestions are. However, we know a lot of those are coming in the works. So for 5319 and 5320, the critical infrastructure bills, we support as an association with amendments. Nefarious drone activity continues to be on a rise across the country. However, it is very important, to your point, Rep. Miller, that we distinguish nefarious drone activity with negligent drone activity. I've worked a lot of game days at the Big House where drones are not allowed to fly during game days, and most of the operators there that violate those temporary flight restrictions are negligent. And for us to slap some of the fines and penalties on them without having law enforcement be able to make the decision through that process, whether it's a negligent decision or a nefarious decision, starts to hamstring the use of those laws, and they really won't be utilized in those cases if we have to jump right to a nefarious intent, felony or misdemeanor crime. So one amendment we had is just how do we focus a nefarious intent on the crimes, the heavier crimes, where also giving some ability on the civil infraction side to introduce some ability to enforce some of those negligent flights as well. Because we believe that this issue around critical infrastructure and drone technology flying with nefarious intent is so important, and that our federal government has not moved as quickly as many agencies have wanted, the Michigan Drone Association stood up a counter-UAS task force or a counter-drone task force earlier this year. We have 20 agencies on the task force right now, state and local. We have 5 federal partners that are helping with that. And we're looking to do exactly this, take some of this policy and turn it into action, whether that's through procuring drone detection technology, soliciting DHS counter-UAS funding to help expand these systems and access across the state. There are groups of public safety stakeholders that are very much in tune to these ideas and would love to find a way to continue to partner to make sure that we're keeping the airspace safe and secure. One note that I would like to mention with this specific bill, though, is that some of those intents limit the equitable access of the airspace. We have a lot of industry in Michigan that continues to try to create drone technology. We have a lot of federal initiatives that are trying to reshore manufacturing, bring drone manufacturing to the country, to Michigan. And some of these bills that are locking out different aspects of the airspace would preempt or regulate some of that industry from being here or wanting to be here as well. There are still quite a few federal preemption concerns with these bills, especially these two. The FAA is very clear about it's their job to regulate the airspace when an aircraft leaves the ground. They've released several different case studies, several different case law examples in the last couple years that continue to back that. And so while we are stepping in the right direction, I believe there are still a couple places in this bill that we need to address the FAA's preemption. The general catch-all of anything that's not federal preemptive is 100% legally sound, but it will create some confusion for many stakeholders across the state if they're not reading those different nuances to the bill. So we've suggested some amendments to continue to evolve that aspect as well. The last thing is, right now, us as state and local government have no ability to enforce any drone law in the books. If we detect a nefarious intent drone or a negligent intent drone, all we can do is see and report that to the FAA, report that to the FBI, and let the federal government deal with some of that. One of the bills we proposed and worked closely with Rep. Bruck's office on is what we're calling Bill 15, but it would be an enforcement law that would, similar to the commercial vehicle code, where law enforcement can enforce federal commercial vehicle code laws. We would like to be able to do the same thing on the drone side of the house, to be able to adopt aspects of the Federal Aeronautics Code to give state and local government some ground to stand on when they go to have conversations with these operators and give some enforcement in that capacity. 53, 21, and 22, we support the concept but do oppose the bills as they are currently written. We would like to see those bills continue to move towards empowering drone detection and drone mitigation capabilities because the technology to geofence just doesn't exist today. DJI had geofences, absolutely. They had 80 to 90% of the global 80 to 90% of the global amount of drones out there. However, as you know, both on the federal side and we'll hear in a couple weeks on the state side, we're a lot of different initiatives to get companies like them having a lower percentage in the marketplace. And as we ramp up all of this U.S. manufacturing, putting these geofencing requirements and other things in place is going to have organizations not wanting to come to Michigan to innovate because there's no technology in place that can be blanketed to integrate with every drone on the market. So there's a lot of nuances to that bill that we've do oppose those two bills just because of those things. However, we do support the concept as a whole. As you said, Representative, the MDOT concerns, I know MDOT has a lot of concerns with how they would execute some of these bills as well. At this time, these are unfunded mandates. MDOT Aeronautics is a small organization, and there's a lot of nuances that really have to be worked through on that side of the house to make sure that we allocate, if they're going to be the custodian, that we allocate resources there to actually have them implement some of this in an expedited fashion. 5323, we support with amendments talking about counter-UAS around state buildings. Absolutely, we believe that level one in this entire arena is to have drone detection systems that can alert state and local government when these actors are at play. However, the mitigation authority of taking those drones out of the sky is a highly contested federal issue as well, both on the FAA side and the FCC side. The FAA and the FCC have finally given us, as state and local government, an avenue to move forward on that. 1/1 of this year, there's now an FBI school that we can send people to get trained on this type of mitigation and start to roll that out. However, they have not given any ability for anybody other than state and local government to do that type of drone mitigation, taking rogue drones out of the sky. Even us for the state and local side, it looks like the FBI could train anywhere between 60 and a couple hundred people across the country to be that button presser this year in 2026. And we know we have 56 states and territories. That's not many people from Michigan that might have the opportunity to attend that school to be able to use that technology. And so there's a lot of nuances with that that do still overlap with federal law, allowing critical infrastructure to have the ability to mitigate in those situations. Lastly, 5324, we do support. The one suggestion we've made on that bill with the drone signage is to add an additional civil infraction and misdemeanor for the wrongful posting of those signs. We see a lot of places across the state where organizations do not have the ability to regulate that airspace, have created laws or just think drones are a nuisance. And it's created a lot of contention with law enforcement thinking, not fully understanding aspects of those signs, and then the general public who may be educated or not educated about that capability, or I'm sorry, about that legal authority in those places. So we have asked for just a simple amendment to add a civil infraction that you could not wrongfully post those signs if it was against those state laws that were created. But with that, I thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Rybar. Thank you for your testimony. Just really quickly, and you might have covered this already, so I apologize if this is a little redundant, but your association, what are the membership that comprises of that? I mean, who are we talking law enforcement and some other folks, or?
Yeah, out of the 140 agencies, we have 140 organizations, 800 members. About 100 of those organizations are state and local law enforcement and public safety drone operators, and about 2/3 of our membership individuals are still police, fire, emergency management, drone operators in the state. That was our history, so that's where most of our membership is. But as we've expanded, we've brought in industry players and other folks a part of our membership now.
Oh, very good. Well, we appreciate your attention to this matter. We have some additional questions. We'll start with Representative Words.
Thank you. I have lots of questions, but I'm going to try to limit it to just a couple here. So based on what you're saying, this package, the amendments you would like to see would align it with what FAA or the federal law is or is going to be, and as that changes, we wouldn't be more stringent. Is that what you're requesting?
Absolutely. On our Bill 15, as we're calling it, but on that bill specifically, which we'll get into in later weeks, 100% that's what that alignment would do. And some of the other language we've requested on the amendments would be to do exactly that. not overlap with where the federal government does preempt different aspects of legislation, but focus on how do we future-proof this to scale it into the future when technology and regulation evolves.
Okay, then my second question, and I don't know if this is for you or more the bill sponsors, but in some of these restrictions on here, and you're talking about food manufacturing and coming from an agriculture background, currently, how does the law read, or how would the law in this case, if someone were flying over a farm and you know, you have a no drone sign on your property and they continue to circle above your farm area, do you have the right to shoot that drone?
As it stands today, you do not. As it stands today, the FAA regulates anything that leaves the ground and is flying in the airspace, whether it's 1 inch off the ground or 400 feet in the air, it belongs to the FAA. There is case law across the country that has continued to support that if you go out and take that drone out of the sky, you will be charged and have civil liability in that. So the FAA has continued to evolve different aspects of that. I believe in the bill sponsor will have to speak more to the intent of these bills, but the intent was to give us more ability to do that type of enforcement here in the state, because the federal government has moved slow on some of these different bills and concepts. But as it stands today, you cannot just go out and take that drone out of the sky. After 2016, the FAA made a drone an aircraft in the national airspace. So to them, in theory, it's you're shooting at a manned airplane in the same way that you're shooting at a drone now.
So under these bills, though, if we improve the legislation, then would that give the Michigan State Police the authority? Say I called and said there's a drone over our farm. Do they have the right to come out and then shoot a drone down?
For just flying over the farm, no. However, if we can adopt some of the Federal Aeronautics Code into state law, that would allow us to start to go down that list of what might they have violated. Flying just over your farm, that's not a violation, but flying over people and moving vehicles without correct waivers and drones and parachutes and situations, absolutely, that starts to give us some teeth to be able to have some enforcement. So just by flying over a private property situation, the state hasn't carved out that the feds haven't carved out that low altitude airspace for the state. So that in alone will never, as we see it today, be something that we can enforce. But if we do have Aeronautics Code adopted as state law, it starts to give us some other laws to look at that they could have potentially violated during that flight.
Members, do we have any other questions for? Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, if I can just comment on that, nowhere in the current package does it give private citizens the ability to take down or disable a aircraft, drone or otherwise. Just to clarify that for Rep. Wertz.
Thank you, sir. Representative Carr, you still have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding emerging technology, what role do you think artificial intelligence could play in terms of drone usage or counter drone usage that government might have to try to counteract artificial intelligence? How could government use it wrongfully? How could artificial intelligence be used in a dangerous way as it relates to drones, both from the drone usage aspect as well as government blocking drone usage aspects?
Yeah, from a nefarious intent side, like in the presentation today, many different cases about how AI starts to be used in those situations to enhance those type of attacks. I believe on the government side that we can continue to use it for good. As the airspace gets more cluttered, we as law enforcement and public safety trying to protect that airspace are going to have a tougher time determining, is this a friendly drone or is this a faux drone? And artificial intelligence in those types of situations will continue to enable these drone management systems, the airspace awareness systems, for us to truly know, is that drone supposed to be there or is that drone not supposed to be there before we can take some sort of action. When there's situations like a game day at the Big House or MSU or Comerica Park where it's more sterile airspace, only a couple drones flying on the law enforcement side, it's easier for us to determine if a drone is supposed to be there or not be there. But every day at a festival or other types of events in a downtown city corridor, it gets really challenging to determine, hey, is that our drone that's flying there? Is that the media drone? Is that somebody trying to get an awesome shot of the venue? In trying to sort through some of those things, artificial intelligence could play a major role in us being able to quickly identify those threats and then respond to them with the authority that we'll have in the future.
Okay, we're going to have to cut it off right there. We just have a couple of minutes left. Matt, I assume you'll be back to testify in the rest of this bill package.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
Thank
next
you
time
very
bring
much.
some techno music like Rep Bruck. Step it up a little bit. We will see you soon, sir. Appreciate the time. Couple cards to read in really quickly. Supporting, it looks like all the bills today. Not wishing to speak. Dakota Greenman from Westwood AI. Not wishing to speak. Supporting 5319 and 5320 is Joe Fedewa, DT Energy. I have some members. Representative Bruck moves to excuse absent members. Any objections? Not seeing any. Members are excused. Appreciate y'all being here today and making the journey, get home safely. There being no further business before the committee stands adjourned.